August 10, 2025. To most, it's just another date, another sunrise, another page torn from the calendar. But in the unseen realm, this moment has been written since before time began. It is a summons to the broken, a whisper to the soul that has fought too long and bled too much, the heart that hides its cracks beneath a quiet smile. You have walked through nights that seemed endless, storms that felt merciless, and prayers that hung in silence. But hear this, your journey has not been ignored, your tears have not been wasted, and your hope has not been in vain. The same hand that wrote the stars has marked this day for you, not to end your story, but to breathe into it again. This is not the day you give up, this is the day you rise. The appointed day. Some days are born of routine. They pass like shadows across the sun, barely noticed, forgotten by nightfall. But there are other days, days that carry a pulse, a weight, an echo of something eternal. These days are not placed in the calendar by chance. They are set in motion by a will higher than yours, written into the fabric of time before the first dawn broke over the earth. August 10, 2025 is such a day. It is not just another date to survive. It is a divine appointment, a rendezvous with destiny. The weary heart may not see it at first. For the weary heart, every day can feel the same. A cycle of waking, enduring, and collapsing back into the silence of night. But the appointed day is different because it holds a turning point. It is the day when the clouds begin to thin, when the unseen hand begins to rearrange the pieces of your life into a pattern you couldn't have imagined. It's the moment the author turns the page, not because you have reached the end, but because a new chapter must begin. The truth is, the appointed day often doesn't look holy when it arrives. It may feel ordinary, even disappointing. You may wake up thinking it's just another morning with the same burdens and the same unanswered questions. But heaven's calendar doesn't measure by what you see, it measures by what God has spoken in the secret places of eternity. And when he marks a day, all creation bends toward it. Circumstances shift, hearts are stirred, doors begin to open or close, not by accident but by decree. You may ask, why this day, why now? Because there is a season for every purpose under heaven, and no season lasts forever. Even the longest winter cannot hold back the spring when its time has come. Your pain has had its season, your endurance has been tested, your faith, though battered, has been refined, and now the appointed day comes not as a reward you earned by strength, but as a gift you receive by grace. Do you know why the weary heart struggles to believe in the appointed day? Because the weariness itself becomes a voice. It tells you nothing will change, that every sunrise will be just like the one before. It lulls you into the lie that your story has settled into its final shape. But the appointed day breaks that lie. It interrupts the endless monotony of sorrow with a word you had forgotten existed: hope. And hope does not whisper, it thunders. It says, lift your head, for something is coming you have not seen before. Throughout history, the appointed day has always been a crossroads between what was and what will be. Noah saw the appointed day when the first drop of rain fell after a century of faith without proof. Abraham saw the appointed day when the promise in his arms cried for the first time. Joseph saw it in the sudden unlocking of a prison door that led to a palace. They all lived through seasons of silence, but the appointed day came because it was fixed. It could not be erased by trial, time, or the plans of men. So it is with you. This day, this moment, is not the result of chance or coincidence. It is the intersection where your faith meets God's timing. And timing is everything. Too soon, and the fruit is bitter. Too late, and the harvest is lost. But when the appointed day arrives, it is always right on time, because the one who set it in motion is never early, never late. But there's a truth you must hold. The appointed day is not passive. It comes with a summons. When the day is here, you cannot remain in the place where you've been. You cannot cling to the rags of yesterday's wounds. You cannot bow to the fear that nothing will be different. You must step into it. You must rise when you feel like collapsing. You must take the first step toward the promise even if your knees are still trembling. The appointed day is a door, but you must walk through it. And this is where the weary heart faces its greatest challenge. Not the waiting, but the moving. Waiting you have done for years. Moving requires courage. It requires the faith to believe that this new page will not betray you the way the old ones did. It means trusting the author again, trusting that the story is still unfolding towards something good. August 10, 2025 is not marked because you have reached perfection. It is marked because you have reached readiness. You may feel unready. You may think, I'm too broken, too tired, too uncertain. But readiness in heaven's eyes is not about strength. It's about surrender. It's about reaching the point where you say, I cannot walk another step without you, and meaning it. That is when the appointed day appears, because now the weight is not on your shoulders, but in his hands. Do not despise the days that brought you here. Without them, you would not recognize the significance of this moment. Without the long nights, you would not treasure the sunrise. Without the silence, you would not know the sweetness of the voice that speaks now. The pain was not meaningless. It was a road, and it led you to this appointed place. And here is the mystery. The appointed day is not just for you. When heaven moves in your life, it ripples outward. Others will see it and find courage for their own journeys. The miracle in you will awaken the weary hearts around you. You are not just the recipient of this appointed day. You are a witness to it, a living testimony that hope is not a fantasy, but a fire that can reignite even in the coldest soul. So, as this day unfolds, take notice of the small signs. A conversation that shifts your thinking, a door that opens unexpectedly, a burden that feels lighter for no logical reason. These are not accidents. They are signals that the tide is turning. Even if the full change does not arrive in a single hour, the appointed day has begun its work, and nothing can stop what has been set in motion. You may still be weary. You may still feel the ache of battles past. But the appointed day is here to tell you, this is not the end. The God who marked this date in eternity is the same God who will walk with you into what comes next. You are stepping out of the shadow of not yet into the light of now. The waiting has shaped you, but the fulfillment will carry you. Lift your eyes from the ground. This day was written for you. The same power that carved the mountains and poured the oceans has carved this moment in your story. And though your heart has grown tired, it will beat again with strength you thought was gone. For the appointed day is not about your ability to hold on. It is about his promise to never let you go. The valley is not the end. Every story worth telling passes through a valley. Not the gentle kind you might stroll through on a sunny afternoon, but the deep kind. The kind where the walls rise high around you and the shadows swallow the sky. The valley is the place where the air feels heavier, where the path seems endless, where every step feels like you're sinking deeper instead of climbing out. It is the place where prayers sound like they are echoing back from stone, where hope feels like a far-off memory, and where you begin to wonder if this is the place where your journey will end. But hear this truth, the valley is not the end. It is the passage. It is the corridor between one season and another, the tunnel between darkness and light. The valley may surround you, but it does not define you. It may slow you, but it cannot stop you. Every valley has an exit, even if you cannot yet see it. When you are in the valley, time feels different. Days feel like years, and nights feel like eternities. You measure life in survival rather than joy. And the temptation comes to settle there, to pitch a tent in a land you were only meant to pass through. Weariness can whisper, "This is as far as you'll go. Just stay here." But valleys are not built for homes, they are built for movement. To stay is to surrender to a lie, that the valley is stronger than the one leading you through it. The valley has a way of magnifying every fear. Because the horizon is hidden, you start imagining what you cannot see, and fear fills in the blanks with worst case endings. But the truth is, valleys are deceptive. They look like traps, but they are actually transitions. The path beneath your feet is still leading somewhere. The shepherd has not lost his way, and he has not lost you. History is full of valley walkers who learned this truth. David wrote his most famous words not on a mountaintop, but in the valley. "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." That's the secret through. Not into and not stuck in, but through. The valley has an entrance, but it also has an exit. And the God who walked in with you is the same God who will walk you out. The reason the valley feels like the end is because it forces you to face the end of yourself. In the valley, your strength runs out faster, your vision blurs, your usual strategies fail, and in that stripping away, you are brought to the place where you finally see what's been true all along, that you were never meant to walk this journey in your own power. The valley doesn't just lead you to the other side, it leads you to dependence, but the valley is not pointless. It shapes you in ways the mountaintop never could. In the valley, roots grow deeper because the soil is rich with the nutrients of surrender. In the valley, you learn the sound of God's footsteps beside you because there's nothing else to distract you. In the valley, faith becomes less about feeling and more about trusting. Trusting that even when you can't see the way forward, there is a way forward. Sometimes the valley is not even about your mistakes or failures. It's about preparation. You think you've been delayed, but you've actually been developed. What you learn here will be the strength you carry into the next season. The patience forged in the valley will sustain you on the mountaintop. The humility learned in the low place will keep you steady when you rise. Without the valley, you'd step into the next chapter unready, untested, and unable to handle its weight. The danger of the valley is not just in its darkness, it's in its silence. When you cannot hear God the way you used to, it's easy to believe He has left, but silence is not absence. Sometimes the teacher is quiet during the test, not because he has abandoned the student, but because he is letting them prove what they have learned. In the valley, you are not being ignored, you are being trusted. Trusted to walk forward even without constant reassurance, trusted to believe even when the evidence is thin, but know this, the valley has a limit, there is a point beyond which it cannot hold you. No matter how deep or long it feels, there is a moment when you step out and find yourself in the open again. The day will come when you will look back and realize you made it through. And on that day, you will see that you are not the same as when you entered. Something in you will be stronger, clearer, more unshakable. You may not feel it now, but even in the valley, you are moving. Even in the weariness, you are progressing. Every step, no matter how slow, is a step closer to the end of this passage. Do not despise small steps. Do not curse slow progress. You are not called to sprint through the valley. You are called to keep going through the valley. And when the valley tries to convince you that this is all there will ever be, speak this truth over it. This is not my home. I am passing through. My journey does not end here. Speak it even when your voice shakes. Declare it even when your heart doubts, because the valley does not get the last word. The one leading you does. The valley's greatest deception is to make you think you are alone. But the shepherd never sends his sheep where he will not go himself. He walks beside you. He carries you when your legs give out. He fights off what you cannot see. Even in the shadow, his presence is your light, and that light is enough to guide the next step, and then the next, until the shadows begin to fade. One day you will stand on higher ground and look back at this place, and what once felt like a prison will look like a bridge. What once felt like a curse will be revealed as a blessing in disguise. You will see the moments when provision came out of nowhere, when strength rose up in you from a place you didn't know existed, when the very path you thought would break you became the path that remade you. So do not measure your life by the valley you're in. Measure it by the God who walks through it with you. He has no unfinished journeys, no abandoned sheep, no halfway victories. If you are in the valley today, it is not your ending. It is the evidence that there is still more ahead. Keep walking, keep breathing, keep believing. You are not lost, you are not forgotten, you are not trapped, you are passing through, and when you emerge, you will not just be out of the valley, you will be carrying the testimony that the valley was never the end. The divine exchange, there is a mystery written into the heart of heaven, a transaction unlike any other, a trade that defies human logic. It is the divine exchange. It is the place where what you have carried, your ashes, your heaviness, your years of sorrow, is placed into hands that can transform them into something you could never create. It is not a bargain you make with God. It is a gift He offers to you. Yet, like any gift, it must be received, and to receive it, you must let go of what you have been holding. The divine exchange begins in the honesty of your soul. You cannot hand over what you will not acknowledge. Ashes must be admitted before they can be traded for beauty. You cannot mask your heaviness with forced smiles and expect to walk away lighter. Heaven's economy does not operate on pretense. It operates on truth. And truth says, this is all I have left. Truth says, I cannot fix this on my own. That is the moment the exchange begins. Ashes are the remains of what once burned bright. They are proof that something mattered, that something had life and fire, but has now been reduced to fragments by loss, betrayal, failure, or time. In the human story, ashes are the end, but in heaven's story, they are raw material. They are the soil from which beauty is crafted, but beauty does not rise until the ashes are released. The tragedy is that so many clutch their ashes. They hold them like a memorial to what was lost, as if letting go would dishonor the past. But the divine exchange is not about dishonoring. It is about redeeming. It is about taking what has been broken and weaving it into something stronger, purer, and far more radiant than it ever was before. When you hand over the ashes, you are not erasing the story. You are inviting the author to write the next chapter. Heaviness, too, is part of the exchange. The garment of praise is not handed to those who still grip the cloak of despair. You cannot wear both at the same time. The heaviness that has weighed on your soul, whether from grief, regret, or endless waiting, must be laid down, and when you lay it down, it is not merely removed, it is replaced. Heaven does not leave you uncovered. The garment of praise is wrapped around you like a mantle, changing not just your spirit, but the atmosphere around you. This is why the exchange is divine. It is not a transaction of equal value. You bring what is broken, empty, ruined. He gives what is whole, full, and overflowing. You bring the remnants of battles you lost. He gives the crown of victory for battles he has already won. You bring wounds, he gives healing. You bring weakness, he gives strength. There is no fairness in this exchange. It is all grace. But here lies the challenge. The exchange cannot be forced upon you. God will not rip the ashes from your hands or tear the cloak of heaviness from your shoulders. He waits for your surrender, and surrender is not an act of weakness. It is an act of faith. It is the declaration that you trust Him more with your brokenness than you trust yourself to fix it. Think of the countless lives transformed by this exchange. A widow in ancient Israel poured out her last oil into the hands of a prophet and received jars overflowing in return. A weeping woman at a well brought her shame into the presence of the Messiah and walked away with living water. A thief on a cross gave his dying breath to Jesus and received eternal life in exchange. The divine exchange is not rare, it is the heartbeat of redemption, yet it is also deeply personal. The exchange looks different for each soul because the ashes we hold are different. For one, it may be the dream that collapsed. For another, the relationship that died. For someone else, it is the identity they built that crumbled under truth's weight. And yet, for each one, the outcome is the same. What is surrendered is transformed. But transformation is not always instant. Sometimes the exchange feels like an act of trust with no immediate proof. You hand over the ashes, but the beauty has not yet bloomed. You lay down the heaviness, but the garment of praise feels far off. This is when faith becomes the bridge. The exchange may begin in a moment, but its outworking can unfold over days, months, or even years. And still the promise holds, beauty will rise, praise will come. What makes this exchange so powerful is that it not only changes what you have, it changes who you are. The ashes you once clung to lose their power to define you. The heaviness you carried no longer shapes your steps. In their place comes a strength, a radiance, and a song that testify to the source of the change. You become a living display of what redemption looks like. And here's the deeper truth. This exchange is not meant to happen only once in your life. Life has many seasons, and each season may bring new ashes, new heaviness, new losses. But with each one, the divine exchange stands open. God's grace does not run out after your first surrender. His storehouse of beauty, joy, and restoration is endless. Every time you come with empty hands, he fills them again. So why do we resist? Why do we clutch the ashes and guard the heaviness? Because the pain, though heavy, becomes familiar, and the familiar feels safer than the unknown. But the exchange requires stepping into the unknown, believing that what he gives will not just replace, but surpass what was lost. If you are weary, if your heart has carried the weight of ashes and heaviness for too long, then today is your invitation. Lay them down, speak it out. I release this into your hands. It does not matter if your voice trembles, if your heart is still unsure. The act of release is the act of faith. And faith, once placed into his hands, never returns empty. Imagine the moment after the exchange. The ashes are gone, not erased from memory, but transformed in meaning. The heaviness is lifted, and in its place comes a song you didn't know you could sing. Your steps feel lighter, your eyes brighter, not because life has become perfect, but because the weight is no longer yours to bear. And here is the final wonder of the divine exchange. It is contagious. When others see the transformation in you, they begin to believe it could happen for them. Your beauty becomes an invitation. Your song becomes a call. Your life becomes living proof that no ashes are too dark, no heaviness too heavy, for the hands of the one who trades brokenness for glory. So today, stand before him with whatever is left. Bring the ashes of what you thought was beyond repair. Bring the heaviness that has pressed against your chest for too long. Bring the fears, the regrets, the wounds. Place them into his hands, not carefully, not reluctantly, but fully, and watch the exchange unfold. For the one who promised beauty for ashes, joy for mourning, and the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness is still making that trade. And what he gives will not only restore you, it will remake you. The breaking that builds breaking is a word we fear. We associate it with loss, collapse, and endings. We think of broken glass, shattered dreams, fractured hearts, and we tell ourselves that broken means ruin. But in the hands of heaven, breaking is not the end of the story. It is the place where transformation begins. The breaking that comes from God does not destroy, it builds, it shapes, it refines, it takes what is raw and reshapes it into what it was always meant to be. There is a kind of breaking that comes from the cruelty of life, from betrayal, injustice, or tragedy, and there is another kind, a holy breaking, that comes from the hand of the one who loves you too much to leave you as you are. This breaking strips away what is false so the true can emerge. It dismantles the scaffolding you've built around your soul so that the foundation can be rebuilt unshakable. The truth is, we all carry parts of ourselves that cannot enter the next chapter. Pride, self-reliance, misplaced identities, unhealthy attachments, these cannot survive the heights to which you are called. And so the breaking begins, not to harm you, but to prepare you, not to punish you, but to free you. What feels like loss is often the removal of what was holding you back. Consider the seed. To the untrained eye, the moment a seed breaks is the moment it dies. Its outer shell splits, its neat form is ruined. But in reality, that breaking is the only way life can emerge. Without it, the seed remains intact but lifeless, potential locked inside. So it is with you. The breaking in your life may feel like death, but it is actually birth. Something greater is emerging. We resist this process because breaking is uncomfortable. It forces us to confront the illusion that we are in control. It takes us into seasons where the path ahead is unclear, where what once worked no longer does. And in those moments, the enemy whispers, "You are being undone. You will not recover from this." But the truth is, you are being remade. The very things you think will destroy you are the things God is using to equip you. Look at the stories of those who walked before us. Moses was broken in the wilderness before he could lead a nation. Joseph was broken in prison before he could stand in a palace. Peter was broken by his denial before he could preach with fire at Pentecost. Even the bread of life, Jesus himself, was broken before he could feed the multitudes. The breaking was not the end, it was the preparation for the greater work to come. Breaking changes the way you see yourself. Before, you may have measured your worth by your success, your reputation, or your ability to keep everything together. But when those things are stripped away, you find a deeper truth, that your worth was never in what you could hold, but in who holds you. The breaking reveals the strength of the one who carries you when you can no longer stand. The building that comes after the breaking is not a return to what was before. God does not simply glue the pieces back together. He reshapes them into something stronger, more resilient, and more beautiful than before. The Japanese art of kintsugi repairs broken pottery with veins of gold, making the restored vessel more valuable than it was when it was whole. In the same way, your scars do not make you less, they make you more. They become the testimony of grace, the visible proof that you survived what should have ended you, but building takes time. We want the breaking to be followed immediately by the restoration. Yet the building often happens in stages. First comes the clearing away of what is shattered. Then comes the laying of a new foundation, and only then does the new structure rise. This is why patience is vital in seasons of breaking, because rushing the process will only weaken the result. In the breaking, God is not just changing your circumstances. He is changing you. He is enlarging your capacity to trust, to endure, to love, to forgive. He is teaching you to hear his voice more clearly, to depend on him more fully. And when the building is complete, you will carry a wisdom and strength that could never have been formed any other way. It is in the breaking that humility takes root. Pride has no place here because you are reminded daily of your dependence on God. And humility is not weakness. It is strength under the right authority. It is the recognition that your life is safest when it is surrendered. In humility, you stop fighting the hand of the builder and begin to yield to his design. You may not see it now, but every blow that lands against you is measured. God does not allow the breaking to go further than what is necessary to prepare you. Just as a skilled sculptor knows exactly how much stone to chip away to reveal the masterpiece inside, so does he know how to shape you without destroying you. What feels random is intentional. What feels painful is purposeful. The breaking also breaks your dependence on what is temporary. When the things you once leaned on crumble, you are forced to lean on the only thing that cannot be shaken. This is why, after the breaking, your faith is stronger, not because life is easier, but because you have learned where to stand when the ground moves beneath you. And here's the beauty. The breaking that builds not only strengthens you, but it also equips you to strengthen others. When you have walked through the fire and come out refined, you carry a credibility that cannot be faked. You can look into the eyes of someone in their own breaking and say, I know this feels like the end, but it is not. I have been there, and I am living proof that what is broken can be rebuilt. One day the breaking will be behind you and the building will be visible. You will see the shape of the new structure God has formed from the ruins of the old. You will see the doors that could only be opened because the walls that trapped you were torn down. You will see the beauty of the life that was hidden inside the shell of the old one. And you will realize it was worth it. Every tear, every loss, every sleepless night was part of the construction of something eternal. So if you are in the breaking now, do not despise it. Do not rush to escape it. Lean into the hands of the one who is shaping you. Trust that every fracture is leading to a form more glorious than before. Believe that the breaking is not the end. It is the beginning of the building. And when the work is done, you will not only stand, you will stand unshakable, carrying the beauty and strength that can only come from the breaking that builds. The call to rise, there comes a moment in every weary heart's journey when the whisper turns into a command. You have walked through the valley, you have felt the breaking, you have released the ashes in the divine exchange, and now heaven speaks one simple, unshakable word: rise, not try, not wait, not see if you can, but rise. The call to rise is not about how strong you feel. It is not about whether your legs have fully recovered from the weight they have carried. It is not about whether the world around you looks ready for your return. The call to rise is about obedience, responding to the voice that knows the battle is already won, even if your body still feels the fight. Rising is an act of defiance against everything that tried to keep you down. It is looking every lie in the face and saying, you don't own me anymore. It is the decision that your identity will not be tied to your lowest moment, your hardest season, or your deepest wound. Rising is not about forgetting what happened. It is about refusing to stay buried beneath it. Think of the moments in history when the call to rise changed everything. A paralyzed man at the pool of Bethesda heard the words, "Get up, take your mat, and walk." And in a moment the years of lying still ended, not because his muscles suddenly became stronger on their own, but because the command carried the power to fulfill itself. A little girl who lay lifeless heard the words, "Talitha cum," little girl, I say to you, rise. And breath returned to her lungs because the one who spoke was greater than death itself. When heaven calls you to rise, it is not just an invitation. It is an impartation of the strength to do it. But rising is not only physical. Sometimes the greater rising is inside, rising from fear, rising from bitterness, rising from the apathy that tells you it's easier to stop trying. Rising is a shift of the soul, a decision that even if your circumstances have not yet changed, you have. And when you change, the ground around you begins to change. The call to rise is urgent because the longer you stay down, the more you begin to believe you belong there. The human heart can grow accustomed to the dust, to the shadows, to the low places. You begin to convince yourself that safety is found in staying hidden, when in reality, safety is found in stepping into the light where the shepherd stands. Rising often begins before the evidence appears. You may still feel the ache of the valley in your bones. You may still see the remnants of the battle scattered around you, but you rise anyway, not because you have reached the perfect moment, but because the perfect moment is the one in which you obey. You don't wait for courage to arrive, you rise, and courage meets you on the way. There will be resistance. Every time someone rises, the forces that preferred you weak will try to pull you back down. The voices will come, you're not ready, you'll fall again. It's safer to stay where you are. But those voices are liars, echoes of chains that have already been broken. They cannot bind you unless you agree with them. And the act of rising is the act of breaking that agreement forever. Rising does not mean you will never stumble again. It does not mean the journey ahead will be without struggle. But it does mean that you have chosen forward motion over stagnation. It means you have decided that progress is worth more than perfection. It means you believe that the one who called you will walk with you every step until your feet find firm ground again. This call is not just personal, it is prophetic. Your rising is a sign to others still lying in the dust that it is possible. Your decision to stand is not just for you, it is for every weary heart that has been watching you, silently wondering if there is hope for them. When you rise, you become a living testimony that what was broken can be mended, that what was bound can be freed, that what was dead can live again. The call to rise is also a call to responsibility. When you stand, you are stepping back into the purpose you were created for. Purpose is never passive. It requires movement, action, and faith. Rising is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of the next chapter. And in that chapter, your scars are not hidden. They are used. Your pain becomes wisdom. Your testimony becomes a weapon against the darkness that once tried to claim you. Sometimes rising requires leaving behind things you once thought you needed. Old mindsets, old wounds you kept revisiting, old alliances that kept you tied to the ground. You cannot rise while still gripping the weights that dragged you down. The call to rise is also the call to release. And as you release, you feel lighter. Not because life is suddenly easy, but because you are no longer carrying what you were never meant to bear. And there is this promise. When you rise at his word, you will find him already there, holding out his hand. The strength to rise does not come from sheer willpower. It comes from the one who lifts you. The God who stoops low to the dust where you've fallen is the same God who pulls you to your feet and steadies you as you take your first steps. This call is not for tomorrow, it is for now. Delayed rising is disobedience dressed as caution. The longer you wait, the more the dust settles around you, and yet the moment you choose to move, that dust begins to shake off. The breath fills your lungs, the fire returns to your eyes. You are no longer a prisoner to what was. You are a participant in what will be. And perhaps the most beautiful truth about the call to rise is this: it doesn't end with you. Every rising creates a ripple. Every time you stand, someone else sees the possibility of their own rising. You may never know whose heart was stirred by the sight of yours standing again, but in heaven's eyes, your obedience becomes a spark in someone else's darkness. So hear it now in the depth of your soul. Rise, rise, even if your hands are still trembling. Rise, even if your knees feel weak. Rise, even if the memory of the fall still haunts you. Rise, because you were never meant to stay where you fell. Rise, because the voice calling you is the same voice that called light out of darkness, life out of death, hope out of despair. Rise, because your story is not finished and your purpose is not over. Stand up, child of God, shake off the dust, lift your head, the valley is behind you, the breaking has built you, the exchange has restored you. Now is the time to walk forward into the promise. The world is waiting for the light you carry. And that light will never be seen if you choose to stay down. So rise, not someday, not when you feel ready, rise today.